Oh, look at that one in back.
What's that?
The one in back on the altar. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, that is.
That is very timely.
that is a spring thing, and I happen to find it. I've lucked into Kroger. Not only now when I go in on Friday, they have the donuts for $5 for a dozen.
Yeah.
Now, if you go in the exit door instead of the entrance door, all their leftover flowers are there, and I can get a spray of flowers for like $2.50.
Those are beautiful lilies.
Yeah, and they're at the end of their useful life. I mean, the leaves are starting to fall off, but I mean, they're still, for what we want, the last 3 days for church.
When they first opened up the flower department a number of years ago, they did that, and they had lots of them discounted because they want you to come back. And they were like, it was on Mondays, I think, then, but they were like a dozen roses, like, for $5 or $3.
My wife's Mother's Day roses, I'll get her Monday when they're on that, because right now they're packed with flowers for Mother's Day.
Oh, I bet.
But come Tuesday and Wednesday, the prices will be half price.
Walmart's got a load of flowers in now.
They do that.
Mother's Day too.
They do it on also on Valentine's.
Yeah.
They load up. Yeah, it's nice. Well, if you cut the stems off about that much, I read this a while back, and it really does work. When you buy them and they're quote used, you cut the stems off about like that at an angle, and put it in warm water. Doesn't have to be hot, but it's not cold. Put them in warm water. Works them right up.
And put that. They always send you a little packet of.
You put that in there.
I don't know what's in that, aspirin or something. Somebody said.
It's a
But it does help, because I used to just kind of throw that away. I've heard it lately, and I think it's.
I've heard they add sugars in the water too.
It does. It adds sugar, and it also keeps the mold from growing in your water and getting nasty. Well, they could all be florists. I don't think I could do
You
that.
cut the stem at an angle so there's more surface area for
That makes sense.
taking in the nutrients.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And plus, you gotta get the bottom of the jar, it's not flat down. You get it on an angle, to make sure that it doesn't get closed off.
And then they recommend trimming those ends off after a while then too.
Yeah, you can do it again then. Just keep trimming about that much periodically every few days.
Yeah.
It really prolongs them.
If you buy them fresh, when you buy the week-old ones, they're pretty much at the end of their useful life anyway.
Anyone planted any sunflowers yet? Oh yeah, I've got a couple of packs. I'm gonna plant them. I had them last year. The only trouble is the wind blows. That west wind, if we get some, if you don't plant them on the other side of my farm, they wipe it out. How easy it was for teenagers to get home.
Yeah, well, that's not just one. Wow. That is.
You're right.
Sir?
Well, it's nice little teams who would send out the something within it. It's kind of great, yeah.
Welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this beautiful spring day. Do we have any announcements? Don't know of anything happening anywhere. The only thing I can say for what's happening is, if you're so inclined, every Saturday at the Circle in Greenville, there is basically a daily or a weekly protest of the condition of the country and the direction we're heading. So if anybody feels so motivated, you're always welcome to have people there. Yes?
I don't understand what you're telling us.
There is
In Greenville?
in Greenville on the Circle, there is a guy who stands every Saturday, I think about from noon to 1 or noon to 2, with signs about preserve democracy, or don't cut the school funding, or whatever protest is involved is what's going on. And when they're announced, like the last announced protest we had, which was the day of protest in April, we had 70 people from Dark County at the Greenville on the Circle there for like 2 hours, which I was pretty impressed.
That's great.
But we need to keep the energy up, we need to keep the interest up, we need to keep the awareness up. And this guy is, I think it's the chairman of the Democratic Party in Dark County is Matt, I can't pronounce his last name, but I think it's his brother, but he's kind of an interesting person. He was there yesterday, and I was driving around the Circle, and I stopped to talk to him, and he didn't know who I was and didn't recognize my truck, because I had a bunch of donuts that I was bringing for today. So I was going to give him a donut and give him the thumbs up for doing a good job. And he was like, he wouldn't even, I stopped and rolled the window down, and he walked away to the other side and wouldn't talk to me and wouldn't look at me. So I texted his brother and said, what's the matter with, isn't that your brother that's on the Circle up there? And he says, yes, but he gets a lot of flack from the rock-ribbed conservatives in Dark County, so he doesn't interact with people. He said, you should need to get out of your truck. And I said, well, it's kind of parked right in the traffic pattern. I can't really get out of my truck there. But I will next Saturday. I will get out and hand him his donut personally.
I did not hear one word about, of course, I'm living in Brethren's home. You would think I would have heard something about this.
Well, the Brothers' Home is pretty conservative too. You won't hear anything about what's going on the liberal side of Dark County. That's pretty hushed up.
Unless you want to start your own in the Brother Home. And just stay at the Brother
Yes.
Home probably, that way other residents can come there.
And the Brothers' Home is filled with a lot of brethren, and brethren are a kind of a conservative religion, but they're also a conservative liberal religion. In other words, the Brethren, Church of the Brethren, has just split. As you know, the Castine Church has left, and the conservative churches that didn't believe in women pastors and didn't believe in supporting the poor people, those churches have all pulled out, and they've gone to a more conservative basis. So a lot of the people in the Brothers' Home, it's not limited to Church of the Brethren, but a lot of people there are pretty open-minded and pretty supportive of Christianity as what Christianity used to be. I mean, you can hear all kinds of stories now about Christianity in America. Jesus would not recognize what these people call Christianity. I mean, he said, love your neighbor, and there's nothing but hate going on for your neighbors now, preached from the highest pulpit in the land, that Democrats and immigrants are evil and, you know, they eat babies and kill babies and everything else. That's not a Christian message. So anyway, we're glad to have Derek with us again, and we're speaking on a sense of awe this time. In the 1950s, the Jewish theologian Abraham Henschell wrote, because there is a Herschel, but that's not this man, 4-foot awe and the world becomes a marketplace. What was he talking about? Perhaps it contains the affirmation of something life-affirming. So, I give you the standard picture of awe. Pretty much everybody can relate to that.
Is that a Hubble Space Telescope picture?
It did not say where it came from. It looks like a Hubble picture because it's too distinct to be the scopes that are located on the Earth, because the atmosphere is too thick to see through. So, and there's billions of those around there now, those pictures, and they are awe-inspiring. All right, our welcome is 4:30 in the back of your hymnal. For now, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. That's the Song of Solomon 2. All right, our prelude is I Believe. All right, chalice lighting. Everything begins on the verge of awareness. The dawn is not, and then is. Sleep is, and then is not. In the between is the awakening. The passage of thin light between breaks open the day. The passage of thin sound between flows into the day. Too soon the numbing rumble of traffic swells. The day glares. Let the soft haze hang again across the road. Wait upon the narrow moment, the first awareness of being in between. Live days and seasons on the thin edge of dawn, in praise that every single thing begins now. By George Kimmich Beach. Our opening hymn is number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New. O maker of order, peace be upon you. The traditional greeting of one Muslim to another in Arabic and in English. O maker of order and shaper of beauty, we are grateful for the world in which we live. Instill in us that sense of awe, that we may walk with humble hearts, open to the beauty of all that surrounds us. O source of peace and inspirer of faith, in these troubled times was asked for internal strength and perseverance. Help us to know that we must never lose hope. Help us to act in the world in ways that continue to lift up those who have fallen, to bind up the broken, and to uphold the dignity of the oppressed. O giver of life, we hold in our hearts all who are harmed by continuing war in the Middle East. Help us to keep our hearts open to all who suffer while we work for peace and understanding here at home. O forgiver and hider of faults, accept us as we are. Help us to know that in the face of all that we fear, that we are enough. We can love and we can be loved just as we are. O patient one, grant us peace in our minds, peace in our bodies, peace in our church, and peace in our world. This prayer uses some of the 99 names of Allah. This is by Annie Mason. All right, our children's story, kind of going along with the spirit of everything today, and I know it's one of Derek's favorites, is Rumi, and it uses a sense of awe.
When my coffee is being taken out,
And my dog had a comment.
I am in this world. Don't shed tears. Don't lament. Or fret sorrow. I am not falling into a monster size. When you see my corpse has been carried, don't cry for my living. I am living. I am arriving at eternal love. When you leave me in the grave, don't say goodbye. Remember, a grave is only a curtain for the paradise behind. You will only see descended into a grave. Now watch me rise. How can there be an end when the sun sets or the moon goes down? It looks like the end, it seems like a sunset, but in reality, it is the dawn. When the grave locks you up, that is when your soul is free. Have you ever seen a saint fall into earth, not rise for the new life? Why should you doubt the rise of a saint named human? Have you ever seen a bucket lowered into a well, coming back empty? Why not for a soul when it can come back, like Joseph from the well? When for the last time you close your mouth, your words and soul will belong to the world of no place, no time.
And thus ends your moment of meditation. All right, joys and concerns. We have our sunflowers for Ukraine as usual, Derek.
Oh, you can finish that one.
That's basically,
Okay.
you know, I'm going to say Ukraine every Sunday, and it's something we have to maintain and we have to think about. And that was one of the signs that Matt's brother was holding up, is remember Ukraine. They're being pushed to the backside. They've signed a treaty giving the United States half the profits from all of their enterprises, agricultural, mineral, everything else. And we still haven't promised sovereignty, promised protection. We just said we'll talk to our friend Putin. And there has been a peace, a 2-week peace, which was broken every day by the Russians, continual bombing of Ukraine, even Kyiv had multiple deaths from Russian bombing. It's a sad situation that continues. Okay.
Light a candle of joy. Yesterday was commencement at Bethany Theological Seminary. It was my final day of service. Probably a good way to end. I got to graduate too, in a way. But it was a wonderful thing to see one of my students all the way to the end. Wonderful young man. He let me know that he has received his call to his very first church in Roanoke, Virginia. And knowing that the Church of the Brethren is facing a clergy shortage, I'm very glad for this student, and I am glad for the church. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy.
The Church of the Brethren is facing a tremendous clergy shortage, and that's my wife's main complaint about the seminary is they're not educating new pastors. They're not pushing, they're not recruiting. It used to be when she was there, she went out to churches all over the nation and encouraged people to choose the life of the ministry. And right now they're offering multiple programs, master's programs in divinity, but not as actual practicing pastors for other things. So, and it says something. We want to congratulate Derek on his new job and a commentary when you're happy when you leave a job. So that says something in itself. Let's see. Israel, nothing has really changed. The blockade continues. The Israelis deny that the Palestinians are starving and going without water or medical treatment. They've bombed the last hospital. The last working hospital has been bombed. Supposedly there was Hamas active people in there. It is Israel's stated goals to kill every Hamas operation existent. The problem with that is, as we've said before, is every time you kill a 12-year-old's mother, father, brother, aunt, uncle, grandparent, you've created another recruit for Hamas. So you can never kill all of them, no matter how you try. All right. Let's see. Yes.
It's also like a candle for hope and peace between India and Pakistan.
Yes.
It seems to be escalating. I know those tensions are long-standing, but let's hope for some resolution and things to calm down a bit. And one more candle for the election of Pope Leo XIV.
Yes, Pope Leo from Chicago. Everybody claims he's in Chicago, but you know Leo's history. Actually lived in Peru for years, took Peruvian citizenship, speaks 5 languages, garnered a huge number of complaints from MAGA because when he gave his opening remarks, none of them were in English. How can you have a Pope from Chicago who doesn't open his remarks in English? He's not a real American. So we will find out. I think he's going to be a continuation of that supposedly is what's going on, hopefully, the previous Pope's focus. And yet this Pope, Leo, has a reputation of being able to talk to both sides. So hope he can be a reconciler to bring Catholics into the fold together.
Sometimes their choice of name is a signal.
Yes.
During coffee, ask me about Leo the 13th.
Well, we can discuss Leo the 13th. He was, at times, he was a supporter of the working people. I mean, that's one of the reasons they say he was picked, that name was picked, and against the oppressor, made a formal and a definite stance against the oppressor. So the name is very, very indicative. You want to look it up, or we can talk about it in the future a little bit more. But that's what gives people hope that he is going to be a continuation of what we've seen before. I'm lighting a candle for personal service. Has anybody heard about our new Surgeon General? Heard about Casey Means? Surgeon General of the United States. Derek knows because he's laughing. She graduated from medical school, but then you don't become a doctor. You don't get licensed as a doctor. Do you do your internment, your service? Residency. She was resigned from her residency, which was the polite way of saying she got fired out of her residency. So she is educated as a doctor, but has no license as a doctor and is not truly a doctor.
And has never practiced.
Well, she can't practice because she has no license.
I know.
So what she went into was the business of selling nostrums and emollients and herbs. And she's
Snake oil.
Snake oil. She's a good friend of Kennedy, which tells you how far we have sunk as a nation. Do we have a herbal doctor, a primitive witch doctor is running our medical system? God help us if something goes wrong. There are already over 1,000 measles cases, and vitamin A is still the preferred, from the government, that's still the preferred treatment. Things are getting crazy. And to tell you how crazy, that same candle is lit for Janine Shapiro. Does anybody know the job she's been appointed to?
Yes.
She's been appointed as the state's attorney for Washington, D.C., Janine Shapiro, if you've seen her on Fox News. They have, the last record I saw was the administration has recruited 43 people from Fox News to fill administration jobs in this administration. 43 people from Fox News have been recruited.
Will she show up to work sober?
That is the question. But because you don't have to be sober to be the Secretary of Defense, there's no reason you should have to be sober to be the Attorney General for the area of Washington, D.C. This is unbelievable. Okay, one last candle, which we will leave eternally lit. I guess we need to start an eternal frame of hope and faith for the future of the country, the future of democracy. We are laughing, and we have to laugh because some things are too horrible not to laugh at, but this is serious stuff that we need to be aware of, and we need to stand up and do whatever we can do in our own little way. As far as voting, I worked at the polls the last election, which was a couple weeks ago, last week. In New Paris, there are 520 people registered, 27 people voted. But all they had to vote on for our little 2 precincts was the law in Ohio, the bond in Ohio to borrow $20 billion or $10 billion. And the legislature assures us that money goes for bridges, roads, water, and sewer. But people are still suspicious about the Browns' new stadium in Cleveland. So we'll see what happens. We saw what happened with First Energy, when we were promised lower electric bills and choice to do it, and everybody's paying $20 to $40 more on your electric bill. This is still in effect to support the failing, bankrupt coal plants and nuclear plant. And that was all put in with bribery to the leader of the House, who is now in jail for that. All right, now we're going to hear from Derek on A Sense of Awe.
It is, as always, a blessing to be in your midst on Sunday morning. It's an added bonus. I've always loved the drive up from Richmond, especially when the weather is so beautiful like it is today. Thank you as well to the El Dorado congregation for giving me the freedom to come up here and be in ministry with you today. The reading appointed for this morning is one you've heard just a little while ago. The quote from Abraham Henschell, the famed Jewish theologian: "Forfeit awe, and the world becomes a marketplace." Forfeit awe, and the world becomes a marketplace. So I remember being a little preschool-aged kid when my parents lived in Saginaw, Michigan. My dad had a job working for the city. We had a backyard full of trees. There were 3 huge oak trees at the middle point of the backyard, and then a line of pine trees at the back edge of the property. Every bird that came into that yard was a wonder and a miracle to me. The house sparrows that were there all year round, the brilliant yellow goldfinches that astounded me with their color, and my mom had to explain to me, they're there in the winter, but they're not yellow, they're green. They change colors with the season. We also had these slate gray birds called juncos that only showed up in the winter. They came down from Canada to spend their winter in Saginaw, Michigan. And then there were the loud-mouthed blue jays that like to hang on the clothesline. They also did something with acorns. I'm not sure, maybe they ate them. You'd see them flying around with an acorn in their beak. As years have gone by, I still have some sense of awe at the trees and the birds around my own home today, my home in Richmond. But I think that I now walk through life with more of an agenda than I did as a 4-year-old, and financial issues weigh heavier on me as an adult. And quite a few days, my days have a clock-driven urgency to them, with chores and to-do lists. Growing up is bound to happen. I'm not one of those people who idealizes childhood and wishes that I never grew up. I'd hate to be a child trapped in an adult body. I wouldn't wish that on anyone else either. But there is something that has faded over time. I won't say it's missing entirely, but it has faded. Call it a sense of awe about nature. There's a rocky landscape in Utah called the Bears Ears National Monument. The landscape contains mountaintops and groves of pine trees and petroglyph paintings that are holy sites for both the Ute and the Zuni people. The black bears that live there, they live in an environment that is held sacred by the Ute people as symbols of life and renewal. And each year, around the time when the bears emerge from hibernation, the Ute people gather there and perform the bear dance, one of their oldest acts of spiritual devotion that give thanks for the natural world, the cycle of the seasons, our own cycles of sleep and renewal and reawakening, symbolized by the bears, living and hibernating and awakening and reemerging. In 2017, the first Trump administration reduced the size of that national monument, Bears Ear National Monument, by 85%. So they shrank it by 85%, with the reasoning that the land was needed for oil drilling and mining and cattle grazing. As an aside, the situation went very quickly to court from both the Ute and the Zuni because of the issue of preservation of sacred sites. And that thing lingered in court until the Biden administration restored the national monument to its original size. But I can't help but dwell on the words of Abraham Henschell, the Jewish theologian who warned us, forfeit awe and the world becomes a marketplace. I worry about a world where people cannot see the sacredness of natural landscapes and wildlife. I worry about a world where we look at nature and can only see coins to earn and then spend. It would be too easy to get into issues of political personality, partisan conflicts, and such. And in doing so, to not look at the larger human challenge that underlies the problem, to point the finger at others and not recognize the challenge that spans a wide part of our culture and is at risk even inside of ourselves. Now, I am not so naive as to think that human civilization does not need minerals or lumber or livestock. There are needs all around us and economic systems most of us rely on, even if we did not create those systems. Even so, don't we also need sacred landscapes and sacred places, wild animals, and lands that are not viewed largely as places for extraction? I think human beings also need resources for inspiration and beauty if we are to fully and comprehensively flourish. I am not so naive to think that ranchers, miners, and lumbermen should go unemployed and homeless. I still eat small amounts of meat. I consume dairy products. I use minerals of many different kinds in my daily life, and you do too. I have wooden objects in my home. Those resources come from somewhere, but must they come from everywhere that they possibly exist? Can we be discerning at times and say, no, we're not going to take it from there? Can we be creative about asking how we get those resources? Do we need that much? Could we recycle more? Our culture has an impeded sense of awe, and I think we should be both concerned about this failing and also compassionate about this failing. To have any kind of connection to the sacredness of the natural world, we need some sense of awe about the natural world. That moment where we go, oh. A sense in which we are impressed by not only the beauty that is bigger than us, but a sense of humility before forces of nature that are also so much bigger than us and which our lives depend on. Many people around us are struggling, have been struggling for a long time. It is difficult to be concerned about the impressive sight of large ancient oak trees. It is difficult to be concerned about the health of migrating birds. It is difficult to be concerned about landscapes like Bears Ears National Monument. It is difficult to be concerned when you are struggling with poverty, are worried about feeding your children, and wondering if that next illness is going to send you into bankruptcy. It is not difficult then for me to understand why some people around me think Bears Ears National Monument, to heck with that, drill baby drill. I'm having a hard time paying for gas in my car to go to work. It's hard to expand your vision when you're struggling so hard for survival. But there are things that can push through the pain and anxiety that hopefully help people to see the bigger view. It requires a cultural shift. And if it's going to begin somewhere, it can begin with us and people like us, and then shared outwards. It needs to be evangelized in a way. Evangelized because if God is a part of nature, and if all of our devotional energies are to be refocused so that humanity and nature can thrive in harmony, then we need to evangelize. You can get a tongue-tip taste of the cultural shift we need to make if you walk outside with a small child. That child is filled with wonder at the grass and the sky and the birds and the trees. You can get a taste of it, just a tongue-tip taste, each time you get away from the electronic screens and go outside into your garden, where the air and the soil and the sky meet together in our hands and nourish living, growing things. It is about being, for episodes in our lives, in timeless spaces where our attention can move in directions that are about things other than earning and spending and earning and spending. And to remind people that there is more to life, to all of our lives, than just earning and spending. And there's more to the world outside these doors than just the coin that we can extract from the land and the sky and the sea. We can be in a different headspace, so to speak, when we cultivate a sense of awe and respect for the natural world and encourage others to do the same. God is not just up above, but also up ahead, in behind, under our feet, and within. As nature is distinct but never separate from our beings, God in nature also works the same way, distinct but never separate from our own beings. In Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple, and I may mispronounce some of these names because I've read the novel a long time ago. I've actually never seen the movie. But in the novel, The Color Purple, there's a bar singer named Shug who has a conversation with Celie. Celie says it's obvious why she goes to church. She goes to church to learn about God. Shug replies that what she knows about God, she brought into the church with her from other places. One of the things Shug explains is that God grieves when we walk by the color purple growing in a field and do not even take notice. For the character named Shug, the natural world is a sacred text. It is radiant and holy, filled with divine mysteries and wonders. To know God in and through the color purple, growing among the plants of the field, is to know the prophets and the saints under every rock and stick. It does not mean that God is purple, or that God is literally the rock or the stick or the bird. Rather, it means the Spirit is present in the color purple, present in the rock, present in the stick, present in the bird, because all these things are one. And we are part of that unity as well, if we would only take the time to contemplate it and appreciate the blessings we are contained within. It is my joy when I am in this pulpit to note that the message is not mine alone. What insights would you share this morning? What questions would you raise? Your questions are your curiosity, opening doors to insight and new revelation. What would you share this morning?
If we could only have a scale that we could balance between the awe and the material, pragmatic, profit-driven scale, so that we would have a continuum and we could say, in making environmental decisions, we could say, no, I'm sorry, don't even think about legislation, don't even think about a court case, it's on the other side of the scale. Awesome. The other thing I think I reflected back when you were sharing those wonderful words, the whole notion of a cycle. When I was a kid, we were talking about backyards. I explored everywhere I could, and I couldn't wait because I knew it was April, or I knew it was March, and the crocuses were out, or I knew that it was May, and warblers would be passing through, and that cycle was experiential at first. And then, of course, cycle in my science training became much deeper, more conceptual, but it was still a cycle. And then later in my career, and I'll stop here in a minute, the cycle became the cycle of learning and how best to sequence what's worth learning, and a cycle, if you will, that gets deeper and deeper conceptually. So, my thought.
I think what's beautiful about that is that a person can cultivate a state of mind where they see that cycle of experience at the same time as they hold that cycle of scientific knowledge in their mind. And to see those things side by side. That's why I've never really understood, despite the fact that people told me to, the notion of science and religion being these things trying to erase each other. Because I grew up in a world where I saw something sacred going on in the yard, or even, I think, anticipating. There was a point in the year when I would begin to anticipate that Grandma out at the farm would take me hiking along the edge of the fields and along the train tracks where the wild blackberries grew. And we would go picking wild blackberries. Not to sell, but because they were tasty. And the birds had theirs and we had ours. And if we got enough, Grandma might make a pie.
Part of the adventure.
Yeah.
The sense of awe is usually understood as kind of a revelation, a thing of beauty or a mystery, but also the sense of awe can apply to the opposite. If you watch the film of Mount St. Helens exploding, or if you watch the film of the mushroom cloud over Hiroshima, that is another sense of awe. There was a program on PBS last week called Insect Apocalypse. The percentage in insects are the largest biomass on the earth, and as far as total volume, 40% decline in many insect species. And we've talked about this before, I have anyway. Used to be when I was a kid, everybody's windshield was speckled with insect hits when you drove down the road. You had to stop constantly and clean off your windshield. Never in the last 10 or 15 years, there's not even been 1 or 2 insect hits. And then I began to connect that. I've had finch feeders out for 2 years with absolutely no finches. The finch feeders that I filled last year were full at the end of the year. I put in fresh Niger thistle seed this year, nothing. There's not been one touched, even through the winter. There is a, and I think I mentioned that before, usually in the spring I used to see 20, 30, 40 robins in a flock. Maybe you'll see 1 or 2 now. Used to see mourning doves in a flock. You don't see that. Even used to see sparrows in a flock. We are undergoing an apocalypse in the surrounding world, which we are not even aware of, I think, is what's going on. I'm suspicious.
Yeah, as well you should be. Robins don't migrate the way they used to. I see them at my home all year round. And that's, I'm going to say that forbidden set of words. Global warming. With a warmer climate, they don't move. I also, this spring, actually it's nesting outside of Bethany, there is a species of flycatcher that built a nest outside Bethany Seminary. And it's like, I don't remember normally seeing these around here. And I had to pull out my Peterson bird guide, for those who are hardcore on that stuff, and look up the map and find the species like, oh, that usually ranges up into southern Illinois and Indiana, but not this far north. Things are getting disrupted, changed, moved. We could all go for a big dose of, even if one does not follow it, appreciating Native American religious teachings that touch upon these issues. There's a reason they pay attention. They lived much closer to the earth in a way than we do with our level of artifice. But even so, we have people in our own. Abraham Henschell from Judaism is warned people that when we lose that sense of awe, everything just becomes something to buy or sell. Unless we think it's just the natural world and we're not part of it. I think it's also possible for very powerful people to view human beings as one more commodity. And I'm not talking slavery, but I'm talking as units of labor, or as people who produce X number of taxes but consume Y number of services. And not to see the beauty and the wonder of the human being that's there. That would be a grievous thing.
All right, time for our offering. If you have something to share, please contribute. If you need something, let us know. We are a community. And we're going to hear Sleep, My Child. the earth?
Yep.
Is that what we're doing?
21.
Yep, 21.
Close.
Close, yes.
At
Close
least
enough.
it's in the right neighborhood.
Well, actually, the other one, Dear Weaver of Our Lives Designs, looks interesting, but I've never heard of it, so.
I don't know that tune.
Yeah, let's go with For the Beauty of the Earth. I think that's more fitting. Extinguishing the Chalice is 499 in the back of your hymnal. And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns and the round ocean and the living air, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of thought, and rolls through all things. William Wordsworth, a classic. All right, our postlude, Till There Was You. All right, as usual, we leave our one candle lit for all the problems, tribulations, concerns in the world. Keep those in your thoughts. Do what you can do in your own way. Our horse picture is kind of blurry, but that in the leading by a head, winning by a head, is Racing Rebel. Racing Rebel started with even with everybody else, ran most of the race in the 8th position out of 9, and finished first by a head, long shot, 18-1 odds. If I would have bet $2, I would have won $28.50. So live and learn. So we'll see how Racing Rebel does in the future. Curly, I'll bring a picture next week. Curly is at my place in retirement. My neighbor let me use his pasture for a little bit. So instead of being on his little 1-acre lot that he's got trampled down into a mud patch, he's out in the chest-high grass now. He's just as happy as a horse on pasture, I guess you could say. Okay, there's coffee and donuts back there. Have a good week. Do what you can do. Keep the faith, and do not ever lose hope.
Well, it's nice to see you early.
Lloyd, does it say on there what musical that was in?
The music band.
Music band?
Yeah. Well, 76
I love that song.
Yes,
And you did it.
We got trouble in River City.
we got trouble in River City. I love that. But I love, who's the guy that was the lead?
Robert Preston.
Robert Preston.
Yes.
He had such a larger than life
Yes, he
personality.
did.
He was
He did.
perfect for that.
Yes, yeah.